Gonna be oh, thank you. This is gonna be more of a conversation. It's a relaxed session. It's and we don't want to go into too much technicalities. If there are, that possibly we will have some Q&A at the end. I would like to also thank you for those who have a few questions for us. But what we're going to do is we're going to save those questions a little bit to the end. And we want to make sure that this session is strictly at 45 minutes. Let me introduce myself. I am Zairul from Cordia Training and Development. We specialize a lot in the area of soft skill, and we design our own games and simulation, and we use this to deliver our content. And today with me, we have a very special guest. We have Aisha Diana, and she is a clinical psychologist at Mentum Psychological Services. So she's been there since 2019, and she's been covering a few areas ranging from mental health disorder to stress-related cases. So today, we're just gonna share some of her experience and some tips, some easy tips, some ideas on how you can maintain, or all of us can maintain our mental health, especially in our current condition today. And I would like to announce that we are actually now winning with 21,000 cases. Congratulations. That also could be a contribution to either stress or any form of discomfort. All right, so Aisha, maybe I can start the ball rolling by asking you what is really mental health. Well, I mean, this is a word that's been popping up a lot. We work a lot with corporate clients, and they've been mentioning using this word a lot. Mental health, mental health. What is it really? What is mental health, or what does it comprise of?
Right. And I agree with you. Because I think nowadays the idea of mental health feels like a new concept, but it's been around for a long time, right? But there's a higher awareness of the importance of mental health. So mental health is sort of your psychological state that includes your emotional, your social, as well as your psychological well-being. And the whole idea is really about the way that you manage your challenges, the way that you take care of your vulnerabilities, your emotional vulnerabilities, and how you then increase your resources so then you can deal with like different adversities in life. So it's that like little headspace that you have to, confront any obstacles that you have.
Okay, all right, good. So that like in a nutshell is basically our cognitive ability. That's not technical, right? There is ability for us to respond based on certain stimulus, condition, people that we deal with, finances, or all of this has a contribution to our mental health, or how we perceive this kind of stimulus. Great. So that is so far that is okay. I think in general, people are aware of the current situation, and possibly some of them are either aware or not aware of their current state. Either they are taking it okay, or are they taking it a little bit too deep, or they have strategies to control. I think over the period of a year and a half now, what would you say the mental health cases, I mean, in your personal experience, has it increased as compared to before, or is it now a whole lot more in demand? Are you, what is your current situation?
I mean, two main points that is that there's actually an increase in mental health disorders now. So now in comparison to like last 2020, there are more cases of those who have depression, anxiety, especially in the first half of 2021. And there's also increased rate of suicidal rates as well. And that kind of goes to show how difficult people are taking this new norm, this pandemic. And it really truly is affecting their mental health. And especially for those who are already predisposed to having mental health disorders, they're more likely to be having more adversities, more challenges in managing the stresses that they're dealing with today. And if you're talking about whether we're in demand, I mean, definitely there are more requests for mental health services now. But I think at the same time, it's unfortunate that it's happening now because a lot of the mental health professionals as well as the healthcare providers are also going through the same kind of pandemic, right? So we're kind of trying to hold space for other people, but at the same time also trying to make sure that our space is not on fire. So it's like, it's good that it's in demand, but it's unfortunate that it's also happening during the time when it's a pandemic. So there are a lot of stresses that we are all dealing with individually as well.
Right. And I would say you are also a frontliner because you are seeing people on a daily basis, either virtually or face to face, and you're sorting this out on your own. So thank you so much for being part of the the frontliner and making sure that things are Malaysia is sane again.
Well, we try.
Yes, we definitely need more people like you especially in Malaysia. Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I believe, what is happening now, I think, especially where people are working from home, when they work from home, things become a little bit limited in terms of, the flexibility of moving around. They have to balance it with their family. You have children. For me, my kids are a little bit big, so it's easier to manage them and tell them not to come in at a certain time. How about those who are younger kids? You hear them knocking on the door. I've had many meetings where the child just wants to play with the parent, and and you can't ban at them. And I noticed that people are also adapting to the situation. Those who are also in the meeting would completely understand. It's just that the person who are experiencing it feels a little bit uncomfortable. You can see the face is completely red. I don't want to get mad in front of them. So they want to manage their emotion as well. So these are all these small things that's happening to us, especially in our current condition. I mean, I'm sure that you are facing a lot of that kind of stress. What would be, a concept or like an idea for people to manage that, to manage their working space at home? Any idea on how they can do that?
I guess let's just talk about like the first MCO that we ever had to face with, right? I think during that time it was a new norm altogether, and we were all trying to adapt to these new demands and this lifestyle that we're working from home. I think at that time we were kind of introduced to this idea that the boundaries kind of loose. So between work and personal life, it's as if it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of blended in, right? And then over time, then you start to realize that, okay, there are certain things that are important for you to take control of. So for instance, ensuring that there are boundaries between your work and your personal life would include, for instance, making sure that the space that you're at work do not have any interference with other people. So for instance, for me, when I do my therapy sessions, I make sure that it's not in the same spaces where I go to sleep. And the reason why that is because you don't want to make association between sleep and work, have that association. Number two is, I guess, it's not like that for everyone, right? Not everyone have the privilege of having two different separate spaces. I guess ensuring and reminding yourself, like, there's some things that are within your control. For instance, reminding other people that, hey, I'm gonna have this session, let's just try and minimize any contact and minimize any distractions. That's one thing that's within your control. But whatever happens outside of that, you need to also remind yourself that those are things that you've tried to manage.
Recording in
Sorry. Yeah. So there's certain things that are within your control, and there's things that you can preempt before it becomes like another problem altogether. So I guess reminding yourself what are within your control and what are the things that are outside your control.
Right.
Identifying your boundaries. So identifying, okay, this is my work time. So from this time to this time. And after that, you also need to kind of assert that space and timing. So for me, and I advise to my clients as well, there's certain cues, for instance, like when you know it's time to work, you wear your watch. But when it's time to finish work, you take off your watch because you no longer need a watch to do your work. Because you're at home and you're with your family. So these small cues kind of remind you that there are a lot of changes, definitely, but there are also certain things that are quite familiar to you. So ensuring that you are setting some routine, some familiarity, and that familiarity will then make you feel that we're in a lot of chaos in many ways. There are also safety in knowing that there's certain things that you're still in control of.
Okay. I think that is like one of the biggest value are actually the small things, you know, that you can manipulate. Even I've seen people who doesn't have that luxury of space, where that's the place where they eat, that's the place where they sleep, and they work. So they, instead of going into another space, they still use the same space. It's just that they have like cardboard box as borders. I would say it is the cheapest, but it does help. You know, they block the bed. I know when I first, or when we first started going to the realm of virtual training and virtual meetings, my working space used to be beside my bed.
Right.
And yes, I learned that it was not a good idea.
It's okay. It's a rookie mistake. I think a lot of people have the same thing as well, because it's very convenient. Like once you're done work, then you can just go rest.
They're like, oh, my back hurts. Oh.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, and I noticed also, actually, another small thing, but it ultimately became like a big thing. One of my family was sharing that she's a teacher, and one of her students attended the LPKN military training, you know, for a couple of months. And this young gentleman, before joining the program, he was wearing, he had glasses, and his power was like 700 punya power, like his, you know, really strong glasses that he was wearing. But when he completed the program, and he, you know, every time he put on his glasses, he would have like a huge headache. And when he came back and he checked, his power actually went down to like 400 or something like that. And we were curious, like, what was it? You know, what was the secret? So his theory was, every day when he wakes up or when he comes out from his tent, all he sees is green. So the environment really changed him, actually biologically, improve his eyesight from 700 to 400. So, you know, like even different sets of color or changing a slight environment will actually make a strong contribution to your, you know, to your stress level, I would say. Even my boys who are in school, they're school from home, and you know, and when they play their game as well, they're inside the house as well. So, and you know, since we are restricted, we can't really go out and explore and go to the park. And what I do from time to time, I force them to stand in the sun for like 5 minutes. I say, boys, it's sunny outside, go and stand, do nothing in the sun. So you see like two boys.
Like, it's my homework.
Yeah. So, you know, go and absorb some vitamin D. So, you know, and of course, it has to be in the morning. So that's what I did. Just to have a small break and create some level of variety for them. Yeah.
I completely agree, because I think even before the lockdown, we've always kind of been very dependent on the screen and, you know, social media and like technologies. And I think because we've been so dependent on it, we kind of almost forgot that there are also other parts of life outside the screen. And when you engage in like, you know, other parts of your sensory, it really does help you feel very connected to yourself as well internally. So the most important thing, as you mentioned just now, is like having that break from the screen, although it feels like a minute 5 minutes, but it's a huge impact on like your overall well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also puts things into perspectives, I think, because I think when you go outside, you see how other things are, like the magnitude of natural life, and you're just one part of that life.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, and you know, where I'm gonna go next is a little bit of a jump, because we're now talking about, you know, simple things that you could do, simple things that you can create a little bit of change, a little bit of variety, a little bit of dynamic in with whatever resources that you have, right?
Mm.
We don't want to, you know, buy another house just for the sake of space, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm to like jump straight into some serious topic, well, not too serious, but how do we know, or you know, or what are the symptoms when we are like burnt out, when we know like, I tried doing this, I tried shifting, I tried many variety, but it's just not working, you know? So how does one classify or identify when, you know, you're burnt out?
Right. So interesting part about burning out is that a lot of times people tend to associate burnout with feeling stressed, which is not entirely true. So when you're burnt out, it means that you've been exposed to like prolonged stressor, and
Right.
stressor is so much for a very long time. And burning out means that you don't have enough to counter it, or you don't have enough internal resources to continue with the task. A lot of time burnout is also associated with work, right? And I think when you mentioned just now, like how do you then know when you're burnt out? So kind of imagine yourself as a bucket, okay? And this bucket is level of stress. And different people have different sizes of buckets, right? And when things are really stressful, the water kind of overflows. And if you don't manage it, it will feel like everything is just flooding and it's just so overwhelming. So the point where you know that you're burnt out or burning out is when you are more easily irritated, when you're more easily, angry, and you're more easily exhausted. Those are warning signs to tell you that you are having too much in your bucket and you need to find ways to kind of take out the water out from the bucket, so then whatever adversities that you have, they don't start to overflow too much, because in reality, there's always going to be stress and there's always going to be water in the bucket. It really depends on how you manage the water level, right? And that includes your coping strategies. A lot of times when people are burnt out, they almost feel like they don't have choices to manage the stress. When in reality, when you're more aware about the source of the stress, you can then figure out, okay, how do I deal with this one step at a time, right? So water level and identifying what are the ways I can take the water out so that it doesn't become overwhelming. So those are the coping strategies. I think we'll talk about it throughout the session.
Okay, so I think that will be a good time to go to the next level. So now I've identified that, or I've noticed that, you know, my bucket is a little bit full.
Yeah.
I'm getting annoyed all the time, or you know, I'm yelling at my kids all the time, or I'm sarcastic all the time. You know, and sometimes I think it would be good that it's difficult possibly that people cannot see it for themselves. Or they don't realize it for themselves. But when you get feedback from others, you know, you say, hey, you know, why are you so cynical? Why are you going against all the ideas that we have given out? So
yeah,
you know, so this could be an indication that my bucket is almost full. Right?
Yeah.
And if I am to, you know, now I realize that my bucket is full. So how do I agree that okay. How do I seek, or either is this something that I can handle by myself, or is this something that I need professional help? You know, especially where I'm burnt out, and I think I've just reached the top.
Yeah. Good question. Because I think when we're talking about burnout, it's so common nowadays because, you know, working from home means that a lot of your safe space to unwind and unload and cope are not as easily accessible anymore, because everything just feels very blurred. So nowadays people are more likely to burn out because they don't have that space to just breathe, right? And the difference between those who are just experiencing burnout versus those who are experiencing depression is they have different level of symptoms and severity. So those who are actually experiencing mental health disorder would start to engage in behaviors that would perpetuate the cycle. So they would go into the downward spiral, isolating themselves. They would start to have a lot of like negative self-talk. Whereas with burnout, they don't really have so much of that. It's more about their perception over the current situation that's related to work. So I think we're talking about spectrum. So if you're talking about just the burnout, what are the things that you can do? It's more about identifying where is this irritability coming from. Am I just irritated because I've got lowered threshold because my bucket is so full? Or is it because there are other underlying conditions that I have not fully attended to? And if, for instance, the feelings of irritability or feelings of exhaustion have exceeded a certain number of weeks, for instance, right? And it starts to affect your social life, it starts to affect your work life, starts to affect your personal self-care. That's when you know that, okay, something's up and it's not just burnout. I think it's also important to note that a lot of people have different predisposing factors to developing a mental health disorder. And if those warning signs and those red flags are not being attended to properly and professionally, it can result into more difficult problems to work on. Yeah. But
right.
Yeah, so burnout is a very common condition and it is reversible. The most important thing is for you to be wary and be aware of what's actually going on, and know that when you are having those warning signs, it's just your body telling you that something is up and we need to do something about it.
Okay. For when you're noticing that you had a very tough day, everything that was supposed to go right went wrong. And if somebody is to go or decide to go into more of physical movement to reduce, reduce that kind of pressure, would that help or would that have any form of contribution to reducing the bucket from being full?
For sure, yeah. I think it really goes back to what is your coping strategies, and physical movement and exercises have shown in research how tremendous of a positive impact it has on mental health. So imagine the bucket of water, and exercising is like a tap of water. So it takes out the water level, right? So the water level doesn't overspill. And so is socializing, having positive sort of communication with people that you love, people that you care, and being around people is also one of the tap that kind of takes the water out. Expressing yourself, journaling. I think these things come together and it helps to manage the water level. So it's not just depending on one type of coping strategies, you're also trying out different things. Because I think for a while, like the government said, we can't go out, we can't go exercise. And a lot of people, myself included, felt very cornered because we're so used to only one type of coping, right? So they have to learn different ways to ground ourselves.
Okay, so that means if my tap is eating.
Yeah, I know where this is going.
Would that work as a coping strategy? Although we do know that there could be a consequence to that, possibly as time goes. But for immediate relief, would that be ice cream or chocodo?
I love chocodo. Chocodo is the best. Yes, but also looking at how long you use it to cope.
Right.
Reason being is because when we're talking about the water level, right? I see hunger, tiredness, and also loneliness as sort of like the stones inside the bucket of water. So if, for instance, you're hungry, it's like an added stone. So the water level kind of goes up. So you're more likely to overspill and you're more likely to have an irritability and you're more likely to feel stressed out. because your biological needs are not met. So you have to make sure that your biological needs are fulfilled before you go into your psychological needs. And a lot of people tend to think like, oh, it's okay, I just will not eat and just go on with my day. But truth is, when you don't fulfill the basic needs, you are more likely to lower your threshold towards the stresses around you, and therefore you're more likely to actually have an emotional reaction. So yes, you need to fulfill the basic needs, but ensuring that the food that you eat is good and is healthy, because I think there's a difference between like comfort food and nourishing food, right? And if you're just depending on the comfort food, then it can sort of like lead to like a different kind of cycle. But ensuring to find that balance between what's comfort and what's nourishing for you.
Right. And I think we're blessed in Malaysia because we have quite a bit of comfort food to choose from.
Yes, and the deliveries are not helping either.
Yeah. They're making it a lot easier now.
Yeah.
You don't even need to leave home, right?
Yep, I agree.
Okay. And for those who just joined in, thank you very much for joining us. Tonight with Aisha, we're talking a little bit about maintaining mental health. There's just one more thing that we're going to chit chat about, and then about 8:30, we're gonna open the floor for some questions, and we will also address a few questions that was asked earlier in your registration. Aisha, going back to you, I know because I also did psychology, and some time ago when I graduated 2 years back.
Yes, 2 years back.
When I first started work, the perception of seeking for help was a little bit tabooed back then. It was perceived as, oh, there's something wrong with you. Why would you want to go and see? Why don't you go and see Tok Bomo? Those are the kind of things. I don't know, it may even happen now.
Yeah.
What are the most common impressions when people seeking for help? Are they forced to come in, or were they sent by somebody else, or is it voluntary basis?
I think different era or like different phases have different patterns. So I think before COVID, before pandemic, pattern was more of people. So if you're talking about adults, they would come in voluntarily because they know that, okay, these are the things I need to work on. I need to talk to someone about it. But if you're talking about like teenagers or children, they're more likely forced to come in because their parents think that they're the problem. So they need to go and seek for help. And it's still happening now. But I think now when we're talking about the pattern with adults who seek for help, they have better family support, I guess, when in regards to them seeking for help, because it doesn't feel as stigmatized as compared to pre-pandemic, because they know that at this point, everyone would benefit from therapy. But this is not generalized for everyone. I guess it's just based on the ones that who come in for therapy. It seems that they have more family support now.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think it varies based on the culture, though. Because I think in the Asian culture, we have specific cultural beliefs. Like you said just now, like it's easier to just go to Tok Bomo because you know what the Tok Bomo is doing. So you know, like, okay, this equals this. But when you're talking about therapy, it's hard because everything is confidential. Everything is safe inside the space. So you don't know what's happening inside the room. And a lot of the changes, for instance, may not be noticeable. So it might be like internal changes. So you might think, actually, this person is not making that much of changes anyway, because they don't see the changes. But the patients, the clients themselves, they see the progress. So there's a lot of pressure from the external environment and the internal experience.
Okay. Either that or I can supply some coconut and I can jumpy.
That too.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I think in a short period of time we have covered quite from mild situation to burnout. There's a little bit, I wouldn't say extreme, but it's a little bit serious, and also some perception in terms of seeking for help. I think now people are a lot more open, especially with the pandemic. People are not shy anymore, right? If they need help,
Yeah.
they say, guys, I need help.
Yes.
And it's okay. I think it's times have changed, and I think people's perception now is they are just open. If they need help, they just seek the right places for the right services,
Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah. I think one thing to add also is that the the newer generation, like the ones 18, like the Gen Z, they're more likely to seek for help because they know the importance of mental health. But if you're talking about like other generations, they're still having that idea or that belief that no, if you're having problems, you just keep it to yourself. And honestly, like I don't entirely blame them to have those beliefs because they have lived so many years with those sort of beliefs, and it's we can't expect everyone to change overnight. So
Yeah.
the new generation who are seeking for help, they would be like the starting the child. Like they get to show the older generation that it's okay to seek for help.
Right.
Yeah, so normalizing mental health services.
Nice.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, I mean, culture, practices definitely change certain behavior.
Mm.
I mean, if I'm a person who is a bit shy or scared to seek for help, and I see younger generations and they're open about it,
Mm.
and they give you the right direction, and I think to convince or to escort people towards opening for assistance, it has to be gentle as well.
Yeah.
It's got to be gentle where they feel it's a little bit more welcoming rather than this could be something serious or
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the teenagers who do seek for therapy with at a center, for instance, a lot of the parents would call up and say, "Oh, can you please talk to my children? Can you please talk to my kids? I think they need therapy." And truth is, it's good that the parents have intentions to bring their children in, but we can't force them to come in. They need to feel safe enough, to feel welcome enough, and to feel like it's within their control, it's their ownership to come in and make that choice to do something about the problems that they're faced with. So you're right, it's a gentle approach in telling them, there are different choices and approaches to deal with the problems.
Good. All right, so actually we have come a little bit to the end almost. We have about 13 more minutes and we want to allocate this time for some questions. So if you guys have any question, go ahead and write down in the chat and we will answer those questions as best as we could. For those who are viewing this session live on Facebook, go ahead and write down in the chat as well, and we will address those questions. Now, those questions that was asked earlier, I think this is one of the hardest questions to answer. It's a simple question, but I think it is a little bit difficult. So I'm going to put you in the deep end for this. And the question is, tips to be happy. It's simple, but yeah, it's so complex. So
Right.
do you have any tips on how to be happy?
I love how from the start you already told me that you're just going to put me in the deep end, but I'm going to throw the question back to you.
Oh.
The reason being is I think different people had different definitions of happiness, right? And different people had different ways to feel happy instead of to get the feeling of happiness. So for you, Chum, how do you define happiness?
Oh, well, I suppose defining happiness is, things that you, when you allow yourself to be able to do things that you like to do.
Right.
That is defines the happiness. At the same time, you have to balance so many things, right? Okay, there's plenty of things that I would like to do, right? But then at the same time, you got family, you have kids, you got work, you have your health, and you have other people's health and concerns that is not surrounding or close to you, right? Like my mom is far, and I haven't seen my mom for the past 4 months, or at least not on the screen, like physically. So all of this is, like you said earlier, is outside your control, but you do your best with whatever that you have, right? So I can't see my mom, but yes, we still can communicate. I still can call her. I can still can Zoom we have a video chat so we can still see each other. And it's not the same, but you did not lose that connectivity. I think that is part and parcel of finding happiness. And I think that doesn't stop. Once you reach certain goal, I'm happy. But then, now your goal changed, right? Like before, it's like my goal is to get married, right? Now, okay, I got married. Now look for second wife. No, no, no.
You're lucky you locked the door.
So we have certain goals. We reach that goal, then we're setting another goal. We're setting another goal. So I think that movement or that momentum is really what keeps you happy. Even spiritually as well. You reach a certain level, you want to reach to another level, you want to expand your knowledge, etc., etc.
Right.
So I think happiness is movement lah. The more you move forward, you find the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. So for you, happiness is more about your ability to keep going towards a certain goal, towards certain values that are important to you.
Yes, correct.
Right? And so it keeps changing. So I guess when we're talking about finding that happiness or feeling happy, at the end of the day, it goes back to like, what are your values? What are the things that are actually really important to you? Because for one person, happiness is like, like a plate of pancakes. Like to feel well fed.
That makes me happy also.
Right? Yeah, because that makes me happy, right? So it's like, it's the little things. But it's not goal. For me, having like nice meal, being around my friends, that's not a goal. That's really just a part of my life. And knowing that I may one day lose this makes me want to appreciate even more.
Yeah.
So I think there's like that depth of appreciation, knowing that you might lose it one day. So I guess different people have different ways of defining happiness. And it goes back to what's important to you. It goes back to what are your resources to make sure that you maintain this happiness or this feeling of contentment and feeling of joy, and ensuring that you still progress towards the goals that you have, towards things that are important to you.
I suppose to keep that going is to consistently have your own checkpoints. Like, did I reach my happiness, or am I almost there?
Yeah.
Always, I think looking at, always reflecting on what you've been doing and which way you're heading.
Yeah, but I agree. I think knowing sort of like a loose benchmark on like what are the things that you like to achieve would be a good way to make yourself feel like, okay, you're getting somewhere. But at the same time, you also want to be mindful of not only using the checkpoints to feel happy, because there are times, for instance, that there will be a lot of barriers that will stop you from moving, that will stop you from progressing. But that does not mean that happiness is nowhere to be found. So making sure that it's not a black and white thing, and ensuring that there are still different ways, sort of like a roundabout ways, regardless of the checkpoints having a lot of barriers.
Okay, great, awesome. I think we have a room for one more question. And the question is, does working from home really affect mental health? And which gender is more affected? This is one of the questions.
I think, as I said earlier, working from home, if it's not well managed in terms of your boundaries, in terms of your timing for yourself, taking care of your self-care, would eventually lead to having more emotional issues and mental health issues. So it's important that you are aware of how you are dealing with this whole working from home, to make sure that it doesn't lead to a bigger problem. And then the question about which gender, it's hard to say, because I think there's like an easy way out, like, yeah, definitely the woman have got more things to deal with. But truth is, I think different genders play different roles. And I think now the roles are more blended in some ways, probably in some families. But if you're talking about like the traditional roles, for instance, women would have to deal with the children, would have to deal with, like the work. So there'd be more tasks. But, for instance, for you, Chum, you're a father, right?
I am?
I was thinking like, right. So for you, you also have your own set of challenges in this lockdown. And maybe your challenges might be different to your wife's challenges, right? But that doesn't mean that it's less challenging. It's just different challenges.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. She's got She's got a lot of challenges. One of it is to manage me.
Multitasking lah.
Yeah. Okay, great. We have one more question. This question is how do we try cultivating the importance, the mental well-being within an organization? How do we cultivate the importance of well-being within an organization? So thank you for your question, Prish.
I think to cultivate, a healthy mental health in an organization, it's hard to say because there'll be a lot of people involved. But I think it kind of goes back to how are you cultivating your own mental health with regards to the workplace that you're in. Because truth is, different people had different thresholds and different people had different limits. So have you reached a point where it's too much already that for you the only way out is to leave the place? Or do you feel like there's still more choices to deal with whatever obstacles that you're faced with at the moment? Because truth is that there are a couple of ways that you can go about it. You can either quit and leave the place, or you can also, take a few steps back and really think, okay, what are the ways that I can deal with this and respond to it one step at a time instead of jumping to different solutions. So I wouldn't have the right answer in terms of like the holistic organization, but you can work on yourself first. And you feel like the workplace that you're in are not aligned with your values, then perhaps you want to check back and see whether this is a place that helps you grow and whether this is a place that is somewhere where you feel safe growing.
Yes, I think that is really tough, especially big, small organization. It has different culture. If you're coming from a different culture, you go into a different culture, it takes quite a bit to adapt. I used to work in the sport industry, and how people communicate within sport industry is completely different how people communicate within the corporate industry.
Yeah.
There's a lot more swearing here, but it's completely different.
Yeah.
And the one is the ability to adapt. Two is if even when you adapt, you still don't feel like this is right, then you're gonna feel the pinch from there as well.
Yes, and that's how it can lead to burnout, because you feel like there's nowhere or no other solutions to deal with the problem.
Okay, so Prashantini said thank you very much, and you're welcome. A lot of the idea came from Aisha. We have another 2 more minutes, and I wanna make sure that we respect your time, because we promised that we're gonna end by 8:45. Now there's also another question, but what we're gonna do is Raj is gonna give share a link in the chat. So here, this is one way that you can communicate with us, and we can further answer if you have any questions. So it's either you require individual services, or you want to look at it as you want to join a program where you can manage your health. So do let us know, give us your feedback in that regards. So go ahead and click on the link. My apologies, we are unable to answer everybody's question, but thank you for your question. It's very nice that there's a lot of questions coming in. We also got some feedback from Facebook as well. Thank you so much. Now, before we end the session, Aisha also has a little announcement about your services, and I hope that will also answer some of your questions. I know some of you are asking this. So over to you, Aisha. You can go ahead and share.
Okay, so I guess with the rising cases of people having a lot of mental health issues, my company and our center has actually been providing mental health screening sessions. So it's a 15 minutes mental health screening sessions where we have you fill out some forms, and then in that session, the therapist will speak to you about what the stresses you're experiencing, the severity of your symptoms, and we would also recommend different ways that you can go about the stresses. For instance, if the stresses are very difficult and you're experiencing very severe symptoms, then we would also recommend psychotherapy services. And so from there, we will just kind of discuss further on what type of therapy would be needed. But the whole idea is that this mental health screening sessions are sort of like the bridges to make sure that you still have access to mental health resources. And so there are ways to go about your current situation.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope those who have a little bit more, I would say, a case where you feel it's a little bit more than just stress, then I would definitely recommend seeking out this facility. Just go ahead and fill up the form in the link that Raj has shared. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to Aisha for her time and her experience and knowledge in sharing with us. And I also would like to thank everybody for joining us on Facebook Live and as well as registering on this Zoom. And hopefully this session is useful and you can use the simple tips and bits and pieces and see if it helps you. I'm sure small things or small adjustment can definitely make a big contribution. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. Please do stay safe. Do drop us an email if you have any question, and please stay connected. And we will share also with you with upcoming webinars in the future. So possibly next month we will have another one. So thank you so much, everybody. Take care, stay safe. We'll catch you again next time. And be happy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.